Welcome, everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza. I'm Dr. Speed-Selling, of course. This is the Raging Verbalist. This is a very special edition. It is on St. Patrick's Day. Yes, it is on a Thursday, not a Friday. So you are getting it one day earlier. And this will be exciting. And there's a reason for that, and you'll find out in just a few moments. But of course, let us bring in the lovely Sandra, who is playing through the pain. She's working, even though it's tough. And so we all have to be sending her positive waves. But Sandra, thanks for coming on, and the best smile you can without falling over. There we go. Okay. So welcome, Sandra.
I'll try not to. Hello. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. It's just, and by the way, we've got to go through this quick because she's I guess fighting some kind of virus thing. She told me, of all things, that she went to a 4-year-old's birthday, and all I can say is that's just a giant virus collector. So I just always avoid those kind of things. Send a card and gummy bears and call it a day.
There you go.
That's my thing. So, all right. So today we are going to be talking about kind of a special anniversary, and the anniversary is that it is from today, or today is 2 years ago, that introduced Most Businesses Fail in the First 5 years. It just takes 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to Win. So this is our official 2nd year birthday. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is what's been going on since then and how all that goes. So for those of you who don't know, you can go to Position to Win book on, we have a Facebook group. You can join us there. You can also go to positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. And let's just hit it. By the way, I've got the only kind of green thing that I have that I can wear in celebration of this. And of course, there we go. All right, Sandra, what is the first question? Put it on the table.
All right. So first, congratulations on, 2 years with the book. Got to get that out first. And now looking back, what are the things that you've learned since the book was launched in 2020?
Well, I'd say some of the things I've learned is that never launch a book when a pandemic hits. I can tell you that was not my belief that was going to happen. I was trying to deny it was going to take place, but that happened. But I think really the thing that I've learned is that no matter what time you do something, you need to just keep working at it. You need to push that out there. The other thing I learned is that when you have a good hook of a title, which is Most Businesses Fail in the First 5 minutes, which is actually not the original title. The original title was Position to Win, and buried down below was Most Businesses Fail, is that when you have that as a hook, that people remember it and they talk about it, they question it, they wonder about it, but it really helps a lot. So if you're out there and you're aspiring to do something, you need a good hook. You need a good, really good, solid hook, and we have one there. And I would say probably the biggest lesson is that once you get done with the book, most people kind of kick back and they become this kind of big, beached whale kind of thing. And I think that, I've now learned you can never do that. You have to be relentless in your pursuit of that. I have launched other books for clients. The first one I've launched for myself. And I can tell you that, you need to really be serious about it. And then the one other final piece is that if you ever run into me, I never, ever travel without at least having 1 to 3 copies of the book. And you'd be amazed at how many times I've seen authors who would say, well, why don't you just go look up something on Amazon? Lots of luck. You should always have one with you. You should be proud of your book. So, as I am of this book. So those are the lessons I've gotten in the overview.
Nice. So how important is it to continue to promote the book, even though 2 years have passed?
The thing that you always want to remember when you have any kind of story is that the story grows old to you sooner than it grows old to those people that you meet. And that you're always meeting people, you're always going to meet people who have A, never heard of it, B, kind of, they want to hear, they want to hear all the things fresh and new about it. And C is that if you're going to be successful in life, find a story that works and keep promoting it, promoting it, promoting it, promoting it. Nike could have changed just do it to something else. People do that all the time, which I think is a mistake, because once you have a great story to tell that story continuously and keep pushing it forward. Even though we're 2 years into it, even though we've talked about rumblings about doing an update, doing an expansion, because there's a lot of things that we would now add to it. Book still has value. Book still does something that no other book does in the market. I say that without any kind of reservation, and you should always be promoting it all the time, whatever your endeavor is. So, I'm out there talking about the book constantly. In fact, just did a radio interview 2 days ago, I guess yesterday, no, whenever it was. It was very, crack o' dawn early for me. I never turned down those interviews. And I have been interviewed in all kinds of interesting places. And because of that, it becomes a really fascinating process that you go through as you do this. And in some ways, I'm more excited about it today than I was when it came out. Yes, the novelty kind of wears out that, you have a book, but the most important thing is that you continuously and forever promote it, push forward with it.
Right. So what have you learned over the last few years now having a book?
Well, people talk to me very differently. It's interesting because when you say to somebody you have a book today and you only have what I would call the pamphlet patrol, say that fast 3 times without, kind of throwing your neck out or something. And what I mean by that are people who write like a 30 or 40 page something and they toss it up on Amazon and they go, "Ooh, I have a book." Well, okay, I guess that builds a certain level of credibility. But how people treat me differently is when I take the book out and I have a physical copy. It has, like page numbers. It has an index. It has a bunch of other things in it. It's a real book. And I can tell you that people have treated me very differently. It's a great piece of credibility. And more importantly is that it allowed me to take a lot of things that were in my head or things that I had said in presentations and be able to say to somebody, go buy the book, spend, $25 or whatever it is on Amazon, or you can go to, my website and you can ask me to sign it and autograph it for you. But what it does is it gives you a level of credibility. So if you're out there and you want to find out what that feeling and difference is, go out and write a book. Now, people had told me that for years. I didn't get my act together for a long time to do it, but now I have it, and people treat me differently. In fact, people are surprised when they find out. I don't lead with that. By the way, I will tell you that this is something that you don't want to do necessarily, which is every time a conversation starts, you say, "Oh, by the way, in my book, I say this. Oh, by the way," that can be kind of ham-handed. But having the book there forever and silently attesting that you actually took the energy and effort and put this together has had a very positive effect for me. And I see that just continues to grow as time goes on.
All right. So it sounds like there were, a lot of false starts in getting the book written before this one. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So back in the 80s, when I was selling high tech, I know a long time ago, for some of you, it was forever ago. You weren't even, you weren't even, expected yet. I'm trying to be nice about this day. What I did was I had people say something, and I had this whole kind of fuzzy idea of what it would take to do that. So I started going to seminars. I started, I started subscribing to Writer's Digest, and I started doing some of those things. And, as is often the case, until you do something, you don't know what it takes to do it. And then the other thing is that you have to kind of work your way through the process. So I had a lot of false starts. I had a lot of book titles that I came up with, and that's, again, part of what I do is I do messaging. So I would come up with a title and go, "That's a cool title. I'm going to go write that down and go do some testing on that." And the title would, of course, capture people's attention, move them along, but not necessarily get much further than that. Or I'd write a few chapters. actually hired a couple of ghostwriters at one point in time, 2 different occasions. And both times, one got much closer than the other. In fact, I still have the, one would I call them galley copies sitting in my office as kind of a reminder of what takes place. And the mistake that I made is that if your voice is unique, that you need to capture that voice. You need to put that onto the paper. And that turns out to be a lot tougher than it looks. So I had a lot of false starts. I had a lot of false flags. I had a lot of people say, wow, that's a great story. Is that in a book? Or that's, this is something that's out of book. And, or people would say, oh, you should write that book or this book. And frankly, what happened is that over time, I keep stacking up with maybes and false starts, and was kind of disappointed. Kind of felt like this is like not a good fit for me. Maybe there's something wrong. Is it, can I go get like a DNA test and it says, well, you're never going to get a damn book done, or whatever it happens to be. I had a lot of people say, well, just talk a book through. By the way, some of those books are out there, and you can always tell those books because they get really frayed around the edges because they don't hold up as like something you can actually read, because it was a conversation. I mean, it would be like taking the Raging Verbalist, taking this conversation and just taking the transcript and then just, vomiting it onto the page and saying, well, there you go. I mean, it has to have some coherence. It has to be something that people can actually read and go through. So I had a lot of false starts, and it really took a course that I had an event in Las Vegas, and at that event in Las Vegas, somebody who did the sound work for me, I'd already known him through a coaching relationship, and he said, hey, I'll come out I'll help you if you help me. And it was a great deal, because a lot of times people will say that, but they won't do it. And that person turned out to be my co-conspirator, my co-author, Gabe Bautista. And Gabe said, you got a book in you, and I'm going to help you get the book out. Now, I had heard that before, and usually people like to talk about it. They like to think about it. They like to say a lot of things, but most people don't actually get anything done. If you want a writer downer for today, is to get shit done, you have to do shit stuff. No, something like that. But to get stuff done, you got to get it done. You got to actually do it. Now, it sounds contrite, but you'd be amazed at how many people don't do it. And then you're going to run into every snag in the road that you can imagine, and that's going to happen. So those false starts, that took place. And then eventually it got to where, and I say this on interviews when people say, hey, what does it take to write a book? We have a proven formula. So far, it has worked 100% of the time. And that is take 30 years and a Colombian, because Gabe is Colombian, and put them together and you get a book. Now, that's a joke for those of you who haven't figured that one out. But what has happened because of that is that actually my output and my belief of what that something should be and where it should go is up significantly. And it actually has worked out in a very positive way. Now, what happened while we were writing that book, and that actually leads me to this, which is we ended up writing that book. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. And as we were launching it, as Gabe, 2 years ago, we were putting together the plan. He was in California. We were working day and night. The pandemic rumbling started to happen. And what we did is in 17 days, we put out that book. I hate when the green screen does that. But we put out the other book, which is Remote Work for a Better World. That's available exclusively on Amazon. That taught us a lot about how to get a book out fast. It's a different kind of book. It's a different type of situation. But now, what's better than one book, 2 books? We're going to update. I don't know if we update or if we just redo that book in a different way. But frankly, what it does is that is open us up. We are working on other projects. And most importantly, what I can say to each and every one of you is that there's a lot of power in gaining control over this creative force and actually getting that done. So if you want to get the book or books, go to positiontowinbook.com, check that out. Lots of good free stuff for those cheapies out there. Also, you can go to Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble to get the physical book, or of course our website, or you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Nook. So we have Kindle, Nook, and Apple iBooks, and you can go pick up the title, Most Businesses Fail. Remote work is only available on Kindle, and we've had a lot of requests to do a physical copy. Again, different world, different realm, different things. So that has happened. Go check it out. Join us, and this journey is going to continue. Okay, Sandra, what's next?
All right, so tell me what was going through your mind as the pandemic started to erupt around the world during your book launch.
Well, and this is it. I'm a big believer in 3x5 cards, and I wrote down just 2 words on it and an exclamation point, which was "oh shit!" exclamation point, because what I said was, wow, this is going to dramatically affect it. 150 internet, other quasi marketing events that I was trying to get onto the stage on were canceled within less than 5 weeks. I mean, bang. I mean, hard to sell books if you don't have the audience, you don't have the crowd, you don't have the people. So what went through my mind is that we're going to have to work harder, and we're going to have to figure out more clever, better ways. Hired a public relations company, started doing media, hired a couple of book consultants. One has slipped by the wayside. Got a PR firm got a public press release company to do some stuff. Did a lot of things. Now, didn't really move the needle the way I thought. Return on investment sucked. But what I thought when this thing hit was, this is going to be trouble. It's going to be a problem. Whenever a crisis hits, now understand, I've done lots and lots of turnarounds of businesses, and I underestimated the severity of what was going to take place. And what took place was absolutely astonishing as far as trying to get things done and trying to get out there and do the things that we all needed, that I needed to do and we needed to do. So the bottom line is that the thing I did when I saw the pandemic showing up is I reoriented what I needed to do. And more importantly, I realized that this was going to affect this rollout. Now, I did take a page from the Airbnb guys, because Airbnb literally launched themselves not once, not twice, but 3 times. And the 3rd time it stuck. So that gave me hope about where I needed to go.
All right, so talk about the experience of writing Remote Work for a Better World versus the first book.
So as we're doing the promotion, or laying out the book launch promotion, and we're watching the entire globe afire with the pandemic taking place, we put together a group of smart people, and what we did is we actually used our own material, which I think almost violates certain laws, because most of the time people will say stuff and they don't actually do it. And what we did is that we put together a Zoom call, which we recorded, and we laid out what remote work for a better world was going to look like. We have a bunch of co-authors on that thing, and we started working on that. Now, we had a goal to get this done in 2 weeks. Took 17 days, because once we got it done, we did not understand that we were going to run into the Jabberwocky known as Amazon and the big giant buzzing teeth of Jeff Bezos, which told us that we couldn't use the original title, which is Survive the Quarantine, which was, not a bad title. Remote Work for a Better World is, a good title. And what we ran into is that Amazon said, no way, Jose, can you use quarantine or pandemic or any of those things. So anybody who thinks that the banning of certain phrases happened later, it happened before this thing even got, the fire even really got roaring. And we took this, in kind of an interesting way. So 3 of us got together, myself, Gabe, and one of our other co-authors, and we attacked Amazon, not like, swords and, or pistols at 50 paces or something. I guess 50 paces, you wouldn't even see the guy. Anyway, whatever it was. But what we did is that we started to send them information and respond to their, you don't meet community standards, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do that. And we started finding all of these absurd titles that existed inside of Amazon that were approved. That, frankly, because one of the things they said is that this has too much hyperbole. This has too much, scare people and all of that. Well, all we were trying to do is teach people how to use technology so their life wouldn't blow up. What we've quickly realized is that there was banned phrases inside of Amazon that you couldn't use, and we had to change that. So the difference between writing the first book and the second book is that the second book, frankly, we ran into more technical issues dealing with, of course, the Amazons of the world. The other thing that we ran into was just trying to meld all of those different voices into one and make it sound like it was a book worth reading. I still think it has a lot of value. I can tell you that like 80% of all of the bad Zoom calls happen, or bad, these kind of meetings that take place, whether they're Zoom or not Zoom, but all of them, because they don't follow the things that we talked about 2 years ago. I guess it's 2 years minus 17 days.
All right. So what are the key takeaways for Most Businesses Fail that you think could help someone today?
Without a doubt, there is so much confusion because people like the word brand. And I'm not talking about like brand, like BRAN, like I'm eating a brand muffin, I'm on the high fiber diet, but brand, D. People love that. However, the mistake is that having a great brand that isn't positioned would be a little bit like building a building and not putting in a foundation. So when we say businesses fail in the first 5 minutes, it's because they do not have a solid position in the market that is defensible, and that we build off of that cornerstone. Positioning happens before branding. Without it, you are in trouble. So in my mind, the biggest lesson that you can get from it is to make sure that you position yourself and position yourself properly. The second one is that we often end up not with the position that we work towards, that we've thought about, that we have consciously put together. What we end up with is something that we fall into. What I like to call how most people get into their jobs, their markets, their careers, whatever it is, their life, is that the bus breaks down, the metaphorical bus breaks down, and they stumble off the bus and they go, oh, I guess this is where I'm at. And that haphazard approach really, really sucks. And I have seen failure after failure after failure after failure of people. And when you actually go back and you do that root cause analysis and you actually think about what's going on, is that you find out that they either have no position, or their position is poor and it's not defensible, or more importantly, the position that they have, the position that actually makes them money, they don't like. This is like the very attractive, voluptuous actress, I guess we have to say actor in today's politically correct, non-gender specific, but I don't know, they're voluptuous. and we all have seen this, and they say, no one takes me seriously, and I don't get those kind of serious dramatic parts. I get the ditzy blonde parts. Well, you know what? Positioning works for everything, and positioning works for looks, and it works for money, and it works for products and services. And what you have to understand is that the position you have Now you can always pivot from it, but trying to magically alter it is usually a bad idea, because once you break that, once you get away from that, people do not believe you. This is a little bit like trying to sell steak sauce at a vegetarian restaurant. Hey, it's the best steak sauce and it brings out the flavor of the beef. Yeah, we're vegetarians. Okay, so let me tell you how the steak sauce works. That's a bad idea. That is, they're never going to be there, because part of positioning, part of why positioning works is that positioning absolutely hones in on that your predisposition, your bias table that you have inside your head, that everyone has in their heads, and there are lots of bias tables, those are going to affect and determine the relative success of whatever you're going to do. So I know it's a long-winded way to get to number 2. And number 3 is that more than ever, if you have any inkling about being successful in this topsy-turvy, crazy world, you better learn how to do personal positioning and do it fast, because 2 things have happened since the pandemic. Number 1 is that we have a lot of nomadic people, a lot of people who are walking away from their gigs and doing other things. So there's a lot of fluidity there, a lot of moving around. The second thing is that we're in a global world, and the global market is going to become more and more and more pronounced, not less, more. And here's why: because technology is seeping its way. It's not leaping, it's not jumping, seeping, like, water seeps through and you go, oh, we got a leak somewhere. Well, it's seeping around the globe, and you can actually get people all over the place to do things. So if you think that you have, wherever you are at, there's a certain fortress to it, you're mistaken. Forget about it. So those are the things I think come out of the book and make sense today, more so, or even, I knew they made sense then, but even more so today because of watching this take place.
All right. So, how should someone personally think about positioning themselves in today's chaotic world?
First thing you have to do is understand your strengths and what your weaknesses are. You have to find out what you're good at, and you find out what you're bad at. You should focus and not do what most people do, which is they find out what they really suck at. Most education, unfortunately, is designed to raise the level of mediocrity. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't learn certain topics and certain subjects and learn things. You should be curious as all get out. There's a lot of fantastic things to do. But what you need to do is understand what you're good at, and then how to place yourself and position yourself in such a way that that's going to be successful. I know that this works. This is not some made up hokum. There is no magic formula. What I did was I realized what I was good at: talking, raging verbalist. I realized that I could convince people to do something, so I could influence them. I could drive and force a decision. That would be like selling. On top of which, I was a good negotiator because of having learned a variety of negotiating strategies and tactics and gambits. And finally, what I realized is that I needed to find a market that valued those things and put me in a position that would reward me disproportionately to other markets. And that is how I pivoted and got into high tech. And I understood what my position was and what it was going to be and where it was going to go. So what you want to do is understand, what is your position today? Now, if you're not happy with it once you've done the analysis, and in the book, we call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. When you get through with that, what you have to figure out is, how do you build coping strategies to take care of your deficiencies so you can make it through the day? But more importantly, how do you exemplify those things that you're best at? It always comes down to this. To be successful, you have to take responsibility. And I know that's a big word. And you have to make commitment, another big word for people, to yourself, no one else, that what you're going to do is you're going to focus on what you need to do, and you need to do it as quickly as you possibly can. In this very competitive world, you have to know one thing. The fortunes that will be made over the next 5, 10, and 20 years, those seeds are being planted today. Those things are moving forward right now. The real question is are you going to be that person who's going to run the fastest, jump the highest, and be the smartest that you possibly can be? And if you are and you position yourself properly, the amount of opportunities out there exceeds the number of people available for them. How do I know? Because there's a global shortage for very highly talented people. There's also a mismatch between those people who have talents and those who are seeking those talents. And the mismatch is that if you cannot communicate, and this is the final piece, if you cannot communicate accurately, quickly, and with that very strong position about why you are the best at what you are doing, or why you are the selection that they should make, then what you will discover is that you will always be behind. If you can position, communicate, and more importantly, develop the skill set to be agile in a marketplace that is not going to be the same, whatever you're doing today, I would bet, and I would bet a handsome sum, that it's not going to be what you're going to be doing down the road. Now, some of the core things are going to be the same, but the world is going to keep changing. Anyone who thinks that the world is going to stay the way it is kidding themselves. More important than ever is that most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. Most careers fail in the first 5 minutes. Most people who actually go and get a new job fail in the first 5 minutes. And why? Because they are mismatched to what they are. Find out how you can align yourself with your best strengths and give it the effort that it takes, and you will find that you are going to be successful, and successful in a way that most people cannot imagine. And you will be not only in the top 20%, which you should aspire to be in the top 20% of anything that you endeavor to do, but be in the top 4% or the top 1%. Do that, and what you'll discover is that, your time that you spent here was worthwhile. And more importantly, that you'll become the success that you had only dreamed of. And people will say, and you'll know that you've arrived, and when they repeat the mantra that you were just lucky. Well, I hope that you're going to be lucky in that way through the efforts that you have. Thanks for sharing this second anniversary of Most Businesses Fail in the First 5 Minutes. It just takes 3 to 5 years to realize it, position to win. I'm excited for the future. I think it's going to be a great going forward. And every year we'll celebrate St. Patrick's Day together. Hopefully you'll be with us and join us. Would you, hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit notifications. Also join us on the Facebook group, positiontowinbook.com. And until next time, this is John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling, and for Sandra and the Raging Verbalist is now complete.